From the video store on the ocean floor, it's Dread Diver Radio. On today's episode, we'll take a long and winding tangent-filled road from Candyman through to the Catholic Church, past Stanley Kubrick, and maybe end up back at Candyman. I'll discuss the legend of Sharp-Hand Joe, and we'll cover a few horror headlines. So drop an anchor and stay a while. Here we go. Episode 6. Boy, oh boy, we're on a roll now. What have you all been up to since the last episode? I know, waiting with bated breath. What does bated breath mean anyway? Google? Apparently, the phrase first showed up in Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice around the late 1500s. Huh, is that interesting? Not really. But, speaking of English writers, Clive Barker. You all know him, right? Nightbreed, Lord of Illusions, of course, Hellraiser. But he also wrote the short story that inspired the movie Candyman. It was called The Forbidden, and first appeared in his collection Books of Blood in the mid-1980s. Man, I talk about the 80s a lot. Anyway, The Forbidden shares a lot with Candyman, but there are a few key differences. The Forbidden involves a lead character named Helen, a grad student who encounters a hook-handed figure that appears when she visits government housing to research for a thesis paper. Sounds like Candyman, right? For the film, they changed Candyman's race from white to black, and changed the setting of the film from the slums of Liverpool, England, to Chicago housing projects called Cabrini-Green. Ever wonder where the name Cabrini-Green comes from? Some of you may know. In the mid-1850s, immigrants built shanties along the Chicago River, first Swedes, then Irish. The area was called Little Hell because of a nearby gas refinery. By the early 1900s, it became Little Sicily as Sicilian immigrants moved in. In 1929, Harvey Zorbaugh's book, The Gold Coast and the Slum, highlighted the area's poverty next to nearby wealth. That year, the Marshall Field Garden Apartments opened as a private low-income housing project. In 1942, the Francis Cabrini homes were built. The development was named after St. Francis Xavier Cabrini, an Italian-American nun canonized for her work with the poor, the first American saint. She was posthumously recognized by the Catholic Church for sainthood in 1947. There are a lot of buildings and churches named after her and several shrines, including the Mother Cabrini Shrine on Lookout Mountain in Golden, Colorado. It has a path with stairs that take you partway up the mountain, marked with the Stations of the Cross. And it ends at a 22-foot statue of Jesus. A tall statue on top of a mountain in Colorado, a place known for lightning activity. I wonder if the statue ever got hit. It did, in May 2007. Although no one was injured by the strike, the force of the blast sheared off the statue's open right hand and also shattered and damaged its left arm and base. Fortunately, Jesus was insured. At an overall cost of $275,000. The statue was repaired, and exactly 1 year later it was rededicated and blessed during a special ceremony. The statue had one addition. It's now crowned by a lightning rod. You know, lightning has fascinated and terrified people since the dawn of man, pretty much. Across cultures, lightning was often seen as a symbol of divine power. In Greek mythology, Zeus used thunderbolts as a weapon and a tool for justice. Hey Zeus, I've got your tool for justice right here. I'm ashamed of myself. Anyway, in Hindu mythology, Indra, the god of heaven, lightning, and rain, uses a divine weapon that produces thunderbolts. In horror stories, lightning is often used to create a foreboding atmosphere. But it also symbolizes the creation of life, or the reanimation of life, I guess. In the 1931 Universal film Frankenstein, lightning is heavily featured as an important component of Frankenstein's plan to reanimate his monster. But where did that come from? It isn't featured in Mary Shelley's original book. The electricity/lightning angle of the Frankenstein story only became popular with the 1931 movie. Before that, there were a few plays and even a short 1910 Edison film where electricity isn't even mentioned at all in the story. Makes sense. Lightning is inherently visually dramatic, perfect for cinema, especially scary cinema. The use of lightning in Frankenstein was so influential that you see references to it pop up throughout film history, including 1980s slasher movies. Remember Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives? How does he live? I mean, how does he come back to life? Well, after a paranoid Tommy Jarvis digs up Jason's remains and stabs him with a long metal pole, a lightning bolt strikes and jolts Jason back to life, to rise and enact his wrath on a new group of attractive young people. Speaking of wrath, for that scene, music composer Harry Manfredini used one of the oldest and most referenced pieces of music of all time. Do you know it? It's called the Dies Irae, Day of Wrath in Latin. For hundreds of years, composers and songwriters have been using this melody to evoke feelings of dread and despair. I bet you've heard it 100 times. It sounds like this. Familiar? The melody goes all the way back to the 13th century. It began as a medieval Catholic poem describing the Last Judgment. Nobody is really sure who wrote it, but monks would sing it in Latin at a requiem mass for the dead. It's been used in hundreds of film scores: Alien, Close Encounters, Evil Dead 2, Jaws, Jurassic Park, Psycho, Scream 3, and on and on and on and on. I think it might even be in Frankie Frico. Shabba, don't. Probably not. But it might be most recognized in Wendy Carlos's cue in the opening scene of The Shining. There it is. Over one of the most striking helicopter shots of the era. Good job directing that, Stanley. Hey, but wait a minute. Stanley didn't direct that. The helicopter shots were directed by Greg Greg somebody. They shot these scenes in Glacier National Park, Montana. Specifically, the footage was captured along the Going to the Sun Road near St. Mary Lake. But the rest of the movie was shot on stages at Elstree Studios in England. Kubrick supposedly had a fear of flying on commercial airlines and shot most of his movies near where he lived. Did you know that some of the helicopter footage from The Shining ended up in Blade Runner? Specifically in the happy ending scene in Blade Runner's original theatrical release. Ridley Scott was a fan of Kubrick's work, and he asked Kubrick if he could borrow some of the unused footage for the ending of Blade Runner, which features a voiceover narration over sweeping helicopter shots. Kubrick granted permission for the footage to be used, provided it was not footage that had been used in The Shining already itself. What a swell guy. Well, maybe. Kubrick was known for his demanding and sometimes intense approach, pushing actors to their limits in pursuit of his artistic vision. This included reports of him frequently requiring numerous retakes of scenes, leading to exhaustion and distress for some of his performers, such as Shelley Duvall in The Shining. However, reports on Duvall's treatment are disputed, with some claiming that documented difficulties were somewhat exaggerated or stemmed from Duvall's anxieties rather than deliberate abuse. I don't really know. But, well, who hasn't wanted to abuse an actor from time to time? Especially that Jaleel White, that little bastard.
Did I do that?
I'm kidding. But Hollywood certainly has a history of putting actors through hell to get a performance out of them, or to have them look just right for the role. Christian Bale comes to mind. Have you seen The Machinist? He played emaciated insomniac Trevor Resnick in the 2005 thriller. To play the character who was a factory worker riddled with psychological problems, Bale dropped nearly 56 pounds in 4 months, using an extremely calorie-sparse diet to ditch the weight from his previous role in 2000's American Psycho. If you've seen it, you know that he looks pretty extreme in that movie. I've heard a lot of stories. On one set, an actor had to perform a scene with live bees coming out of his mouth and swarming around his head. The bees used in the scene were a mix of freshly hatched, non-stinging bees and regular bees, which I guess are the stinging kind. And the actor got stung 27 times. How do we know the exact number? Because he had a clause in his contract, an additional $1,000 for each bee sting. When filming wrapped, he received an additional check for $27,000. Who was that actor? You probably guessed. Tony Todd. And the movie? Candyman. Hey, look, we did another loop. Those are fun, aren't they? Let's move on to horror headlines. But real quick, before we get to horror headlines, I don't know what it is about me, but people keep telling me these offensive jokes. And I don't ask for this, but I guess I'll tell you anyway. Have you ever heard the phrase, one man's trash is another man's treasure? It's a great saying, but it's a terrible way to find out you're adopted. Yeah, I know. It's awful. It's awful. I feel bad even relaying it to you nice people. Anyway, let's move on. Horror headlines. Wait, Jaleel White was on an episode of Mr. Belvedere? I take it all back. God bless you, sir. So I wasn't following this. Did we know that they were launching a new trilogy with 28 years later? Or is this news? This is from Bloody Disgusting. Since escaping the lab in 28 days later, the rage virus decimated the British mainland and forced survivors to fend for themselves for nearly 3 decades. In 28 years later, that presents fertile ground to mine scares and social commentary. Social commentary. And director Danny Boyle and screenwriter Alex Garland haven't lost a step since collaborating on their highly influential early aughts horror movie. The pair build on 28 Days Later with groundbreaking new techniques, rich world building, and dense themes. This is kind of up its own ass a little bit, but this trilogy starter has a lot on its mind, anchored by a tremendous cast to guide viewers on an epic, emotional coming-of-age journey. What is this movie? Okay, full disclosure, I haven't seen 28 Years Later yet. I plan to. But this new announcement is telling me that there's a sequel coming out called 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple in January. 28 weeks from now. And it's being directed by Nia DaCosta, who did the Candyman revival, which I hated. So... This doesn't fill me with confidence. I was looking forward to this movie. I know some of you have seen it already. It feels like they're doing that thing again. They're like, why make one movie when you can make 2 or 3? Why, make one contained story when you can stretch it out into several films to try to get everybody's money instead of making the movie, seeing how it does, then regrouping and coming up with a good idea for a sequel. That doesn't necessarily mean the movie will be bad. The title sucks. I mean, Ty West did it with Pearl, and I liked Pearl, so it's not impossible to make it work, but Nia DaCosta, she hasn't really proven herself as someone that I'm going to run to the cinemas to see what she's done next. So... I'll probably pass on this one. What's next? So they released the Red Band trailer for the remake of the Toxic Avenger. They're calling it the unrated event of the summer. It's headed our way on August 29th. The trailer's okay. It looks kind of crazy. You got an interesting cast. Kevin Bacon, Elijah Wood, Jacob Tremblay, Taylor Page. And of course, Peter Dinklage as Toxie. I don't know that this movie's going to find the success that they're kind of, I think, Cineverse, who's putting it out, is really hoping to, I think, capture lightning in a bottle the way they sort of did with Terrifier 3. Is it going to work? I don't know. The movie seems kind of wild for a mainstream audience, and I'm not sure it's even necessarily appealing to the horror audience. It's more kind of an outcast movie that's embracing the weirdness, which I guess is fun, but I don't know that appeals to wide audiences quite the same way. And I'm not sure the Toxic Avenger has name recognition, certainly not with young people. I mean, I'll go see it. Sure, why not? And the fact that it's unrated doesn't really mean anything. That might just be a marketing ploy. You can check out the trailer online. It's coming out August 29th. I'll give you my take on it when it comes out. So this is what they're saying in the press release. A brand new reboot of the trauma cult classic that you demanded in all its unrated glory on the big screen. Not sure who the you is in that sentence, but if you're going to make a Toxie movie, sure, why not make it unrated? Ahead of the nationwide theatrical release of the Toxic Avenger, fully uncut and unrated in all locations, IGN has debuted the official Red Band trailer today. They really want to make sure you know that it's unrated. The Toxic Avenger is fully unrated for everything from ultra-violence to toxic content, mutant nudity, splatter, and I'm not going to read the last one. Not a single moment has been trimmed out of the film for its big screen release, and we're hoping you'll show the F up and support it on August 29th. Okay. We hear there's another superhero movie coming out this summer, but this Avenger is the hero we really need now. All right. So they hired a clever copywriter, I guess, but this feels like the amount of time that it took them to get this movie out after they shot it makes me think there's not much there. And I'm guessing it's kind of a mess. I've heard that. So we'll see. The trailer's okay, but you can make a good trailer out of almost anything. All right, that's enough horror news for now. I just want to leave you with my thoughts on a interesting little curiosity from 1989, 1990. A lot of you have probably seen this. It's become kind of a meme online. It's a little rip-off Freddy Krueger figure put out under a label called Monster. And of course, I'm talking about Sharp Hand Joe. Now, if you've seen this, Sharp Hand Joe, he's got his own thing going on. It's obviously Freddy inspired, but his sweater is red and white striped, not red and green, or any variation thereof. Seems to be wearing blue jeans. His hat has a very narrow brim on it, and he does have a glove hand with knives on it. But for the most part, you know, they've made it off-model enough to probably skirt any sort of copyright claim. And I love this little guy. Apparently, it's become pretty popular to try to find these, and they go for a pretty penny nowadays. So if you're out there and looking in the thrift stores or in collector's shops or whatever, Sharp Hand Joe, he's got to be the #1 bootleg Freddy collectible, I think. There's a lot of them out there, a lot of stuff from overseas. I mean, back in the 80s, Freddy was everywhere. You even had references to Freddy in mainstream movies and on TV shows. So, of course, people were going to try to capitalize on this. Kids were buying Freddy stuff right and left. I mean, I had the crappy sort of pink Freddy latex mask that went out mass market, and everyone had the plastic knife glove. But I never saw a Sharp-Hand Joe. That somehow eluded me. So that's my mission. At some point in my life, I want to find one of these things and possess it, because it's not just kitsch. It's not just being ironic. It truly is a cultural hallmark of the era, of the popularity of this, essentially a child-murdering psychopath that became one of the most marketable characters, certainly in the history of horror cinema, and kind of continues today. So, Sharp-Hand Joe, who knows? Maybe Sharp-Hand Joe could be the inroad to the next Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Seems kind of crazy. I don't know who owns the rights. I'm guessing no one's going to cop to it because it's obviously such a ripoff. But if anyone out there has one of these, please mention it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story about Sharp-Hand Joe and how you found it. But anyway, that's it for this episode. More to come soon. Got my new series of videos coming out on YouTube pretty soon that kind of covers the intersection between true crime and horror movies. I think you guys will dig that. I've got a new Final Destination timeline video coming out that should be pretty fun, and all kinds of great new content for you guys. So stay tuned to the Dread Diver Radio podcast and go check out my YouTube channel. Lots of fun stuff over there. Until next time, Dread Diver out.